How is the crisis facing the tech industry, such as data breaches, discrimination, and harassment, impacting the workforce? What steps are tech companies taking to address these challenges and move into crisis mode? Today, we're going to delve into how rich tech companies are grappling with a range of complex issues and the resulting reduction in the workforce as they seek to cut costs and refocus their priorities. The tech industry has long been viewed as a source of innovation, profitability, and market dominance, with many of the industry's biggest names leading the way in terms of growth and success. However, recent events have cast a shadow over this rosy picture, as a growing number of tech companies find themselves struggling to address a range of crises that threaten to undermine their reputations and long-term viability. One major consequence of these crises has been a wave of layoffs and workforce reductions across the tech industry. Companies seek to cut costs, refocus their priorities, and weather the storm of uncertainty and instability that has come to define the sector. Yes, tech companies are already gearing up for a recession, and the best way that they deal with recessions is to cut jobs. Twitter had a total of 7,500 employees at the end of 2021, but Elon Musk ambitiously laid off the workforce, shrinking it to just 1,300 employees, out of which only 550 were full-time engineers. With such a purge, you would think that these outages have become commonplace. But as far as one can tell, Twitter is completely operational. As an average user, you wouldn't even know that such a massive change unfolded on the back end. Not only has Twitter remained operational, but they've been able to roll out some new features like Twitter Blue. While the layoffs were expected to result in significant cost savings for Twitter, they also had significant impact on the affected employees, many of whom faced uncertain job prospects and financial hardship amid a global pandemic. The move also sparked criticism for labor advocates and other stakeholders who raised concerns about the impact of such layoffs on workers and their communities. But when you zoom out, you'll realize that the same question applies to virtually every tech company. Facebook had a total of 86,000 employees, Google had a total of 190,000 employees, and Apple had a total of 164,000 employees. That's not just these big companies either. The same question applies to well-known startups as well. Robinhood has 38 employees, Airbnb 6,800 employees, and Uber has 33,000 employees. Facebook laid off 21,000 people. Facebook has undergone several rounds of layoffs in recent years, with reasons ranging from restructuring to declining revenue in certain areas of the company. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic also played a role in the company's decision to cut jobs. However, Facebook has been known to provide generous severance packages and support for those affected by layoffs. Despite this, the experience has been a difficult one for employees, and it highlights the importance of job security and workplace stability. Google laid off 12,000 people. Google has also undergone layoffs in recent years, with reasons including company restructuring, the discontinuation of certain projects, and economic downturns. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic also led to the company reducing its hiring and spending, although it did not announce any widespread layoffs. Even the startups that we were talking about, most of them laid off 40 to 50% of their workforce, which simply furthers the narrative that these companies can get away with far smaller workforces. So why exactly did they have so many software engineers in the first place? You don't even have to look far. Instead, you can look back, as many of the tech apps and services that we use daily that were initially completely developed by less than 5 people. The initial WhatsApp was created by a Russian developer from rentacoder.com. The initial Airbnb website was created by 3 roommates. The initial Uber app was created by 3 friends, and the initial version of Twitter was created by Jack Dorsey. With progression, the company size grew, but progression doesn't take tens of thousands of employees. More realistically, it would take hundreds of employees. Most companies did indeed start off this way, but somewhere along the line they started hiring far past their needs. Facebook, for example, at the end of 2014 had a total of 9,200 employees. By this point, Facebook had already been around for over 10 years, and they owned all 3 of their main platforms, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Optimization and scaling, it's not easy, but it's also questionable if it warranted a 9 times increase in headcount over the next several years. A similar story can be seen at Google, as well back in 2014 at a total of 5,400 employees. By this point, Google already had all of their money-making services set up and were performing well, and they had a market cap as high as $400 billion. The company increased their headcount to nearly 200,000. So if it's not an intrinsic need that's pushing these companies to hire more, then what could be the driving force? One of the main reasons is that these giant companies have been known to overhire, often because they have the resources to do so. These companies may be seeking to attract top talent, maintain a competitive edge, or simply have more employees to tackle projects and initiatives. However, overhiring can also lead to bloated workforce, reduced productivity, and increased cost. Some companies have recognized this and have taken steps to optimize their workforce, including streamlining operations and implementing more rigorous hiring practices. So far, we have discussed extraordinarily profitable companies that have infinite venture capital money. At first, these companies do the sensible thing with all this money. They build up cash reserves and diversify into new businesses, solidify the user base and the brand image, but eventually they run out of things to do as they simply reach market saturation. Unlike the traditional companies, these tech companies spearhead to the plummet of success in 5, 10, or 20 years. Thus, the overhiring habit, which means hiring with no intention. Generic job posting listed by the HR of these companies leads to clearing arduous job bars, but selected candidates getting stuck in the matching phase. We have a crap amount of money. Let's hire dream teams to pursue infinite growth and projects. Doesn't this resonate with the philosophy of tech giant companies? Candidates have come to realize that if they waste too much time on matching skill sets, they might not get a job at the company despite passing the hiring bar. So it's in their best interest to join their first team they can and just switch to the team they really want in 6 or 12 months down the line. Well, this is clever, but it also leads to twofold. Issue, first of all, it's not clear how useful they will be during the first 6 or 12 months in the first team. And secondly, it's likely that most of Google and Facebook hopefuls have these same teams in mind, leading to certain teams becoming even more bloated. But despite all of these companies still continuing to hiring because they're chasing infinite growth. Why did tech companies have so many employees? Well, the answer is that they not only overhire, but most of these employees end up working on things that will never see the light of day, like weather balloons that are supposed to increase internet connectivity, underwater cameras for ocean farmers, AI that's supposed to increase agriculture, light that can enable wireless connections. These are all projects that Google is working on right now. As per Facebook, does anyone have to say anything about the metaverse? Several years ago, Facebook was pouring substantial resources into building a joint internet, and who could forget Google Glass? The reality here is that most of these moonchart projects don't end up going anywhere, but they do end up requiring a lot of employees and resources. Even successful projects like Chrome and YouTube don't generate any ROI. Tech giant companies treat employees as commodities, particularly in situations where there is high demand for certain skills or expertise. In these cases, companies prioritize hiring and retaining employees based on their market value and contribution to the company rather than their personal well-being or job satisfaction. This approach has led to the culture of burnout and turnover, as employees may feel undervalued and replaceable. These companies continue pursuing and chasing endless growth. The harsh reality is that most tech companies, in order to maintain their platforms, are trying to add another 10 billion or trillion to their market cap. This leads to overhiring in the hope that they might find the next Chrome or the next iPhone or the next Instagram. For the first time, these companies are starting to see their money go down, and these projects are taking a toll on their core business. And it's only now that these companies are starting to realize that they're inside an overhiring nightmare now. But finally, it is the employees who have to deal with the dismal and the dark future. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more mind-blowing content.